Starting a deep dive on Martha Peace's The Excellent Wife today. If you're not familiar with this book, it was first published in 95, then again in 99. It continues to circulate in conservative Christian circles, primarily those who rely on nouthetic or biblical counseling or ACBC counseling teaching. So you will find it on biblical counseling websites. You will find it recommended in Facebook groups. You will find it passed around at homeschooling conferences and things like that. And in some circles, it is the premier Christian marriage book that it intersects with Christian parenting teaching, in that much popular Christian parenting teaching begins with ideas about biblical manhood and womanhood. Martha Peace has written a Christian parenting book that I will look at some point. This one's personal for me. I'm doing this for 22-year-old me because I was given this book as a young newlywed in a mainstream, non-denominational evangelical church. This was the book chosen for the young marrieds Bible study group. The men were given Exemplary Husband, and we split off in different groups to discuss it. And I still remember most of the women in the group would come in and be like, I threw that book across the room. They had critiques. And I found myself at 22 years old trying to defend this worldview, because there was something I found compelling about it. And I have a lot of theories about why that is as I look back and try and be kind to younger me. But it was compelling. And it was one, for the next few years, I returned to often because it offered me a certainty and a feeling of control about something that was overwhelming to me. And that feels very reminiscent of a lot of the Christian parenting resources. New parenthood can be an overwhelming, it's a life transition. A lot of times it can feel like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it can feel very good when someone steps in and says, I'll tell you the right way to do it. And here's a list of checklists and a list of rules, and it can offer you certainty. I won't get too personal here. I do try and kind of keep arm's length with my personal story for a variety of reasons. But because this is adjacent, I don't mind saying that this was something I returned to again and again. And then, wow, what do you know? When it landed us in marital counseling not too far into our marriage, there was a lot to unpack. And this had contributed to a lot of problems. And interestingly, I've heard this from some of you as well. My husband was kind of unaware that this was a framework I was operating under. I don't think he even finished The Exemplary Husband, but had the capacity to kind of be like, oh, that's some guy's opinion, and set it aside and didn't really return to it. But for whatever reason, and I think some of it is Martha's framing, where she really suggests that really mature Christians will adopt this approach, like excellent wives will want this approach, that treadmill of Christian excellence that I've spoken and written about before I was already on. Like my zeal, my desire to please the Lord, I think made me very susceptible to this, and it sounded good and it offered certainty. So it can be something that we self-disciple ourselves into, even if it's not in a community of faith or a church community that is offering it. So that's a little bit of orientation to this deep dive. I hope you'll join me on it. I've already heard from some of you. I know this is a part of your story. I've heard from many of you that there has been a painful reckoning with this. I do think the advice offered here is very destructive for marriages, for Christian women in particular. So there'll be a lot to discuss here. Let's get started.